What really happens when you die? Every person who has ever lived has done one thing exactly once. Died. More than 100 billion human beings have crossed that threshold. Kings and beggars, warriors and poets, children and emperors. Every civilization, every religion, every culture has stared into the same mystery and asked the same question. What happens next? You might think that in our age of telescopes, particle accelerators, and artificial intelligence, belief in an afterlife would be disappearing. Yet the opposite remains true. Millions of people still believe that some part of us survives death. Despite all our scientific progress, humanity's oldest question remains unanswered. And tonight, we're going to explore it. The moment the lights go out. Death is not actually a single moment. Doctors typically define death in two primary ways. Brain death occurs when all brain activity permanently ceases. Cardiac death occurs when the heart stops beating and blood no longer circulates through the body. But the boundary between life and death turns out to be stranger than most people realize. Some people who have been revived after cardiac arrest report vivid experiences during the period when they were technically dead. They describe hearing conversations in the room, observing medical procedures, floating above their bodies, traveling through tunnels of light, or encountering deceased relatives. These experiences are known as near-death experiences, and they have been reported across cultures for centuries. Science offers several possible explanations. Oxygen deprivation, unusual activity in dying brain cells, floods of neurotransmitters, and disruptions in how the brain constructs reality may all play a role. Yet no explanation has fully settled the debate, because once biological death becomes permanent, no one returns to tell us what happened next, the body's final transformation. While philosophers focus on the soul, biology focuses on something else entirely, the body. The moment life ends, a remarkable transformation begins. Muscles relax completely. The systems that spent decades maintaining order suddenly stop. Blood is no longer pumped through the body. Cells lose access to oxygen. The vast biological empire that kept you alive starts shutting down one system at a time. Within hours, gravity begins pulling blood toward the lowest parts of the body, creating dark patches known as lividity. The body gradually cools toward the surrounding temperature. Then comes rigor mortis. Muscles stiffen as the chemistry required for movement breaks down. For a brief period, the body becomes rigid before eventually relaxing once more. At the microscopic level, an even more fascinating process is unfolding. Your cells begin digesting themselves. The trillions of bacteria that once helped sustain life continue their work, only now in a completely different role. Nature begins recycling what it spent decades building. What feels shocking to us is, from biology's perspective, perfectly ordinary. Nothing is wasted. The atoms that once formed your muscles, your skin, your heart, and even your brain slowly return to the larger world. The long return to Earth. Death often feels like an ending. Nature sees something else, a transformation. The carbon in your body may one day become part of a tree. The calcium in your bones may eventually return to the soil. Molecules that once helped form your thoughts may pass through countless future forms of life. The universe has performed this recycling process for billions of years. Every living thing on Earth is built from ancient matter. Some of the atoms inside you today were forged in stars that died long before our planet existed. In a very literal sense, you are made from the remains of cosmic history. And one day, parts of you will become part of something else. But is that all there is? This is where science reaches its limits. Science can describe what happens to the body with extraordinary precision. It can measure brain activity, track chemical reactions, observe decomposition. But science cannot yet answer the deeper question. Is consciousness something the brain produces or something the brain merely receives? For thousands of years, humanity has proposed different answers. Many religions teach that the soul survives death and enters another realm. Buddhism describes a cycle of rebirth shaped by karma until liberation is achieved. Some philosophers argued that mind and body are separate things, allowing consciousness to continue after physical death. Others believed consciousness ends when the brain ends. And some thinkers suggested that the greatest mystery is not what happens after death, but why anything exists at all. The truth is that no one knows, not with certainty, the mystery we all share. Perhaps that uncertainty is what makes death so powerful. Every human life is unique, but every human life also ends. The greatest rulers in history could not negotiate with death. The wealthiest people could not purchase an exemption, The smartest minds could not solve it. Death remains the one experience that unites every member of our species. And maybe that realization points us toward a different question. Not what happens when we die, but what happens while we live. Because whatever awaits beyond the horizon, heaven, reincarnation, oblivion, or something beyond human imagination, the life you're experiencing right now is real. These moments are real, the people you love are real, and your time is finite. So perhaps the most important response to death is not fear, it's attention, to be fully present for the brief, extraordinary opportunity of being alive. What happens after death may remain humanity's greatest mystery, but what happens before death is still being written, and that story is yours. So tell me, what do you think happens when we die? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.